What would you say is the most powerful tool that you have to determine how you feel in life? What do you think that tool is? Is it money? Is it your talents? Is it being able to bend circumstances to better meet your desires or needs? What do you think? So I would argue that it's none of those things. In terms of bending circumstances to meet our needs and our wants, well, if you haven't noticed yet, when you fight life, who wins? Life wins. We might get a little win every once in a while, but for the most part, there's a natural flow to life, and we don't have very much control over that flow. So then what about money? Can money solve all of our problems? No. And we've seen that in many, many people. Money can be an amazing tool, and it can open up a lot of opportunities for decision making, but it cannot solve all of our problems. That's why so many people die wealthy and unhappy, right? Okay, so then what do we have? Do we just say, okay, sometimes life sucks and we're just gonna lay down and surrender to that? Of course not. Now, as people, we've been designed to be active beings, but I don't mean active in terms of, like I said, bending life to meet our objectives, because that's just exhausting and it's unsustainable. So what are we designed to be active in? We're designed to be active in our choosing our beliefs, as I've talked about in many, many videos, and specifically in this video, choosing our perspective on life. As I've said before, fulfillment in life, it doesn't come from everything and circumstances meeting your wants. It doesn't come from that. For one, because none of us have that all the time. But what it does come from is choosing the lens at which you view your circumstances. Choosing the lens with which you view your circumstances, right? So if you think about a pair of glasses, they have glasses in a lot of different colors, a lot of different lenses, and the world looks different depending on which glasses you put on. Excuse me. If they say looking at the world through rose-colored glasses. Well, if you put on glasses that have rose lenses, everything looks rosy, right? Everything looks warmer, everything looks more pinky. Now, if you put on brown lenses, everything looks browner. Everything looks a little bit darker. Everything looks a little more natural, a little more sepia tone. If you put on yellow, if you were to put on blue, you get the picture. The lenses that you wear shift how you view everything in your external world. Well, that's the exact same thing internally. We choose our lenses. Now, how can we choose? First off, is to pay attention to whether or not the lens we're currently viewing our circumstances with is really serving us. Is it really empowering us? Is it filling us with gratitude, fulfillment? Is it giving us clarity of focus where we can see all of the good and where we can be grateful for the things that we can't quite see the good yet? Is it helping us to be able to have faith in the process? Is it helping us to be able to have faith in ourselves? All of these lenses. So I'm going to give you a few examples of just simple ways that you can change your lens to change your perspective and change how you're feeling about something. So I grew up in Western Washington, a lot of drizzle, a lot of overcast. Well, then I went to college on Oahu in Hawaii. It was really different. Waking up in the morning, I remember waking up and I would see sunshine coming through the slats of my window and I would just be filled with this energy. First thing in the morning waking up, I had never experienced that. Well, after I finished college, for years and years as we lived in other places, I just hated the overcast. I hated it, especially winter. When winter would start, I would just feel angsty and frustrated, and sometimes I'd feel down and I'd get a little depressed, and it was just so frustrating, especially because I knew I could not change the external world. I could not change the weather. I couldn't just say, you know what, we're just gonna skip winter this year. Sometimes I wanted to, a lot of times I wanted to, but that was totally above my pay grade. I couldn't do that part. So what could I do? Well, one of the things I started doing was trying to put on a new lens to say, why do we have winter? Why do we have overcast? Why is this good? Why do we need drizzle? Why do we need rain? All of these things. And I would go for walks. I would get out and experience the weather. I would experience nature. And what I found is that there was a beauty and a stillness to the quiet overcast. I could almost visualize trees underground, their root systems expanding. I could almost visualize those tulips and crocuses and daffodils underground getting stronger and stronger and just waiting to be able to burst through the soil. I could picture all of these animals resting for the winter so that they could come and be active in the spring and summer and fall. And I started picturing from a bigger vantage point. I started picturing life and what was going on, not just from the lens of right here, right now, magnified, but pulling back a little bit, pulling myself out of the equation a bit more to see how everything was working together. Well, something happened as I tried to look through that new lens. I began to love winter. I began to love when it snowed because I knew it was filling the reservoirs. I began loving when it was overcast because I felt like nature's giving me an excuse to just cuddle into a warm blanket and get my cup of herbal tea and read my favorite book. I can do that because sunshine isn't drawing me outside with the energy and with the gardening and with hiking, and I have this little special time in winter to be able to do these things, to blast Christmas music starting in October. I know some people are very against that, but I'm not. I listen to it whenever I want to because I enjoy it. And all of these things that can actually be blessings, okay? So that's one way that our lens can be different. Let's look at another example. Let's look at with our children, okay? Let's look at them throwing a fit. We all love that, right? We love when our kids throw a fit. Nah, we don't love it. And it can be really frustrating. But can we control it? No, in large part we can't. We can influence them, of course, but can we control them? No. Now, sometimes that can be frustrating, right? Sometimes we want to have control over other people. And if you don't have children, think about a coworker. Sometimes we want to have control, right? Because we think we know best. What if we switch that lens to see the beauty of them being able to express their individuality? What if you looked at it that way? Now, that can be really hard in the middle of a tantrum or in the middle of a coworker just going off on you. But what if we could make that switch? It would make a huge difference in our internal state, right? Absolutely it would. What about in that moment when you're looking and they're throwing a fit? What if you could look through the lens of love and compassion and say, you know what? I don't need to control this. I just need to be here to lift and I need to be here to love. What if you could look at it as they're making these noises because they're here, because I get to be with them, because I get to share this moment with them. Now, I'm not saying that we then don't try to influence the circumstance. I'm not saying that if there's damaging behaviors, we say, great, I'm just gonna put on a lens of this is all great and I'm happy. Of course not, that's disempowering as well. But in the moment, when we're starting to feel angry or angsty or upset or overwhelmed, if we can switch the lens, then that can really help us to be able to make a better decision of how to move forward, a more empowering decision of how to move forward, and one that breeds connection and not disconnection. Okay, so those are just a couple different examples. We can do this for all sorts of things. We can do it for the lens at which we look at our body. We tend to be critical of our body. What if we looked at our legs, that maybe you feel like, oh, my legs are just a little chubbier than I want. Or maybe my belly isn't as flat as I want. Or, oh, I've had all these children and my body's nothing I want anymore. Is that lens empowering? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So what's an empowering lens? What about the lens of look at all my body can do? Look at all my body has done. So empowering and different. We can do this for our jobs. We can do this for all circumstances in our lives. We can always choose the lens. So next time you start feeling disempowered in some way, think to yourself, what is a different lens with which I could look through to see these circumstances different and to change how I feel about these circumstances? It's magical and it's amazing. Go ahead and give it a try.